Hello, World Wide Web. I'm Dr. Shado, the internet personality with the best hair. Now, I'm not picking out these movies just because they look terrible. I'm honestly interested in seeing what it is they have to offer, or they are viewer requests, like Raptor. Well, it doesn't look like people will think I'm picking easy targets any less this week, as we have yet another Corman production. Raptor is considered the spiritual successor to the Carnosaur movies, and unlike those, did not come out 1 year after the last, this time taking until 2001 to be produced. Raptor is a movie about dinosaurs coming back in modern times and wreaking havoc on the unsuspecting population. Again. And like every Carnosaur movie before it, yet again they changed the origin of the creature. This time, an old government experiment from decades ago to create dinosaurs, for some reason, was cancelled after they accidentally created a dinosaur that wasn't very well behaved. Years later, the former government scientist who headed the project had continued it without their consent. Therefore, he can do something. I think it has something to do with money. He's not being particularly smart about it, making an amusement park out of the things or what have you. But anyway, let's take a look at Raptor and see just what it has in store for us. Okay, we start out with a short clip from the original Carnosaur.
I'd like to see the slow-mo on that one. Hey man, I'm gonna go take a piss, I'll be right back.
A long clip from the original Carnosaur. Or that entire fucking scene from the original Carnosaur. Hell, it takes us nearly 2 minutes before we get to something filmed specifically for this movie, and that would be the opening credits. This leads right into introducing our lead character, Jim Tanner, played by Eric Roberts, who you may recognize as the big bad James Monroe from The Expendables. He's got a problem right away. Turns out the guy sucks at remembering monthly monetary obligations.
If we don't have your payment by noon tomorrow, we'll have to shut off your power.
What? I'm the damn sheriff in this town.
Look, there is no reason to raise your voice.
Actually, there's plenty of reason to raise his voice. He just didn't do it, because that requires emotion. Miss Henderson, played by Gigi Arneta, doesn't care how high his billing is. His bills are too high and need to be taken care of. This awkwardly segues over to Tanner reaching the Jeep the teens' bodies were found in and meeting up with Deputy Ben Glover, played by Harrison Page, who was Captain Fowler in the original, but hell, I remember him better as Captain Trunk and Sledgehammer anyway. Point is, Tanner fingers the evidence.
This blood isn't more than 4 or 5 hours old. So whatever happened here happened around dawn.
Why do I get the feeling that the shot of Vasquez Rocks was where 85% of the movie's budget went?
Closest thing I ever saw to this was a hiker attacked by a grizzly.
Or a shark. We've got neither of them around here.
I'm more interested in figuring out where it is exactly you have sharks attacking motherfucking hikers. We never get to find out, and instead we move on to introducing Tanner's former love interest, Barbara Phillips, played by Melissa Barcel. Turns out Tanner's daughter called Barbara for backup, knowing this is very plot relevant before anyone, and she requested to see the bodies.
Jesus, this is bad.
We pretty much ruled out a grizzly bear.
It's really confusing. After 4 hours, the blood is still dripping, and one of them is still breathing. And the windows keep changing between plastic and glass. I have no idea what the fuck is going on here.
What about a cougar?
Oh, it's not nice to blame your ex-girlfriend, Jim. Besides, she's busy revealing the tracks in the area by sweeping around the dirt with a brush. Okay, that works for fossilized tracks because, well, they're fossils, they're rock. But fresh tracks that destroys them. Might have been the cougar after all.
January 22nd, just off Route 91 at the Basin Wash.
I know in later scenes it does look like an actual recording device, but from this angle, why does it remind me more of a fucking Wiimote? She noticed that the predator was apparently bipedal, or, since that's too big a word for this movie, two-footed, but she can't identify exactly what the prints are she just destroyed.
It wasn't a cougar.
So stop looking at me like that!
What the hell was that?
Okay, so now we get to see that there's a giant killer monster on the loose that is screaming as it runs around killing everybody, and yet these guys still can't seem to find it.
Could have been the wind, maybe.
How the fuck are you, a stealth game enemy? While the police have no idea what in the fuck they are looking for, or even how to follow obvious trails without destroying evidence and ignoring clues, our team of bad guys is hard at work figuring out who to blame for this oversight. Surely not the mastermind, Dr. Hyde, played by Corbin Burnson. Could be Grant Kramer playing Josh McCoy. Or maybe Lyle Shell, the half-wit who was supposed to be monitoring the eggs at the time, played by Frank Novak. Or why not blame the backup monitorer, Karen, played by Teresa DePriest.
Sir, I can't be in 3 places at one time.
Well, you better be, goddammit. The buck stops here. And here. And here.
Damn, that buck gets around. Oh, and yeah, that is the same Grant Kramer who played Mike Tobacco in Killer Clowns from Outer Space. He's pretty much the highlight of the movie. He's the happy henchman. He works for Evil Incorporated, and that's his dream job. At the very least, he's the most entertaining guy to watch. All the rest of the characters are either serious, stupid, or seriously stupid.
Lyle, do something!
Well, sir, I was going to point out that the girl who died, and the character I played in that movie was her father, so I should really be a lot more upset at this point. Imagine that. This movie is possibly a sequel that is better if you haven't seen the originals. Because then you don't wind up remembering what the plot was when they recycle entire scenes with entirely different plots, almost completely intact as a means to pad out the running time.
Send Swanson to the infirmary and tell him to keep his goddamn mouth shut. And that goes for you and the others too.
Yeah, he's got that sickness. You remember that sickness? That virus that kills women, causes them to lay dinosaur eggs. And that's not something that happens in this movie. That never comes up again, and Lyle isn't so much a sniffle. Ha! All these scenes just work together so seamlessly.
Sorry to say, no one in or out. Oh, I gotta get these cluckers over to Fort Rogers, and I'm 3 hours late. Alright.
Oh, it's not confusing at all that they happen to be under a quarantine that is never brought up again, and that truck is 3 hours late for delivering something that was ordered 20 minutes ago. You come to think of it, that last part probably does make sense to anyone who's worked retail. We already know this scene, but this time it's supposedly the bad guys trying to cover their asses by packing up their nasty experimental dino eggs and shipping them over to another lab in Utah. Obviously the best way to do this is disguised as chickens. Because. And of course the damn thing hatches and kills the driver. But you knew that already.
I got an abandoned vehicle. Looks pretty bad.
Bad? Bad like in an accident?
That's a poultry truck.
They're generally bad. Most vegetarians I know came to that decision after driving behind one of those. The problem, however, is that these chickens were so badly kept they broke free and murdered the driver, so they must launch an investigation. We also see that Tanner's daughter, Lola, played by Larissa McComas, works as a receptionist at the police station. Because nepotism is easier than paying for more sets. But look out, there's a random unknown unseen serial killer on the loose.
He's threatened to come back and burn the town down.
Ain't gonna happen.
Let's shoot the son of a bitch first.
Well, that certainly sounds interesting and worth bringing up in a movie about dinosaurs coming back to life after millions of years and killing an unsuspecting population, doesn't it? Oh, but one more thing of utmost importance.
Do not stop off with that Tommy guy. He's too old for you, I mean it. Alright?
How long until she runs off and starts fucking Tommy?
Oh my god.
Gotta love how she not only manages to teleport over there for sexy time, but despite her being old enough to work at a police station and him being too old for her, they still have no actual building to have sex in, and instead start boinking out in the back of a pickup truck in the middle of a park. Ah, well, it's not like there's some strange killer animal on the loose that's responsible for a string of deaths now. It's the guy in the editing room who keeps attacking them with stock footage. Thus, Lola takes to the wheel and tries to outrun the beast. Unfortunately for her, she keeps being attacked by the Deinonychus in Carnosaur 1 that was smashing on the parked car, so with few options available, she leaps out of the vehicle on a bridge where the car falls down and explodes. She's fine, though. They never filmed the dinosaur ripping a woman apart lying alone in a field of grass, so she's perfectly safe. Her well-being isn't important right now anyway. We've got to get back to Tanner arriving at the poultry truck, confused as to why his deputy has disappeared and left the car. Fortunately, Barbara's there to destroy the evidence.
Well, what do you think?
Don't stamp over the ground while I'm looking for tracks.
Bitch, have you ever heard of the phrase, look with your eyes, not with your hands?
No tracks here.
You might have an easier time finding clues if you forego the Hoover method of detective work.
I wonder if the poultry company knew what they were shipping.
Chickens? We haven't found any evidence that it was anything but, well, fuck it, we gotta get the plot moving somehow. Therefore, they figure out that the victim hailed from the Unis Corporation, so may as well investigate them as they have fuck all else to do. However, this plot point is hindered when Tanner finds out that his daughter is in the hospital, numb to the world in apparent shock.
Something so terrified your girl that she shut off part of her mind to avoid thinking about it.
That's not like her.
Time to research the most horrible thing that has ever happened to Larissa McComas. Oh. Oh. Oh, God. Moving on. Dr. Robert Clotworthy points out that it's not all bad, she should recover on her own, but as this is a movie and we need an arbitrary get-out-of-psychiatric-trauma-free card, some kind of sound or smell or image could be enough to remind her of what terrified her in the first place, which will somehow cure her condition. As I don't know what that could be just yet, Barbara and Tanner head off to Eunice's local headquarters to investigate the case further. But we've still got more stock footage to get through, so what would happen to transpire but Lyle deciding he doesn't want to work there anymore, much to the disappointment of Dr. Hyde. But he begrudgingly accepts that the man doesn't want to take part in the project anymore.
Before you go, there's one last thing that I was going to ask you to do this afternoon. It has to do with the training session of the Alpha T-Rex.
Isn't that Karen's department?
Well, normally, yes, but
I figured now that you quit, the best thing to do with you is put you right to work. That and you are the actor from the stock footage, so it would make a lot more sense. They try to explain away that the fact that the original footage was from this character in extreme emotional distress as he learned that his daughter had been killed, but then he was told that she was here and safe right down the hall by saying some bullshit about having to keep the climate inside this pen set to the Rex's comfort, which is considerably different from our own. That would probably mean that the creatures are very uncomfortable outside of this installation, which they don't seem to be, but never mind that. Lyle flails around stupidly and gets his ass killed so quickly it's hard to say it's even Dr. Hyde's fault the way it was cut. Not to fear, though, for Tanner and Barbara have come to investigate.
Well, Mr. McCoy, we've had some unusual animal attacks. I was wondering...
I don't mean to alarm anyone, but every time you've heard that sound, there was a cougar nearby. They came all the way there and heard something suspicious, so I'm sure they'll get right on.
Would you tell Dr. Hyde that we'll be back tomorrow?
I'll do that.
Tanner, you're the sheriff. You don't have to spend all day just driving around trying to look busy. Maybe it's because in the time it took them to drive there, they figured out what they could do to help Lola.
I think I have that stimulus right here on my tape recorder.
Let's try it.
Santa baby, just slip a sable under the tree for me.
Probably caused some downvotes. But their plan works, and Lola springs to lucidity, screaming at them about the horrible giant fucking lizard that killed her boyfriend and almost got her too.
She may still be delusional.
I seriously doubt that.
How the fuck could a doctor know about the state of her health? I know what's going on. I sweep over footprints and make shit up for a living. So it's decided that Lola stays in the hospital bed and is never brought up again for the rest of the movie, while Tanner and Barbara call it quits for the day. Except for Tanner, who suddenly decides that sleep is overrated, and he should head right back to Uni's headquarters in the middle of the night, with no search warrant or idea what the hell he's doing. Also alone as he leaves Barbara behind at her house. But it's not all bad. We get to watch her get ready to shower. Raptors, not now! This results in her slowly slinking around her suite in her silky skivvies, but it turns out it's just her dog trolling her for the lulz. Only time we'll ever see that thing, so moving on, Ben calls Tanner's answering machine to report vandalism. Cause it's not like he, at the police station, can do much about it, but figuring that it's a mystical serial killer guy, he heads out to deal with the problem head on.
Come on! Come on out! I know you're in here. I know you're in here.
Well, at least the weird serial killer subplot does help explain those lines in the stock footage. But it does not explain that the man is not even fazed by finding himself toe-to-toe with the motherfucking dinosaur in town square. Jesus fuck, how desensitized was he after 2 seasons of Sledgehammer? And of course, being stock footage, we already know what's coming. One giant fucking claw right up the ass, spelling the end for Uncle Ben Danny Glover.
When did it happen?
Last night.
Yeah, he's already back. Found nothing. It was a stakeout scene. Do I really need to pad out the review by having us watch him watch them watch nothing happen? They need Tanner to identify the body, though, so once that's done, Barbara decides to play it where it lays and dig right in, making an interesting discovery.
What is that, some kind of claw?
It's not a claw, it's a tooth.
Number one, that tooth is fucking enormous, more in line with a T-Rex than a raptor. Number two, why the fuck is it black? What, did the dinosaurs raid the circus peanut factory before going on the killing spree? I mean, you guys do know that the fossils don't represent the original color of the material, right? With all these confusing clues, Tanner goes right to the Pentagon.
We have, no files on anything called Eunice.
Well, thanks anyway.
Do I have enough to pay attention? Because it looks like they're just pulling shit out of their asses randomly at this point. The call does get the government types worried, but moving on, Tanner decides it's time to actually file a search warrant for Uni's headquarters from some evidence, I guess, and makes one last call.
Look, Sheriff, I already told you that I
No, it's not about my bill again. This is official business.
What is it?
You see, every climax scene thus far has happened in areas with little to no power, so we need to suspend our disbelief and think that a call center girl could possibly have this kind of reach. I know I can count on you. That's pretty much the long and short of it. He tells her there's a case with so many deaths, and she needs to cut the power at X time, because reasons. Back with the government, it turns out that Dr. Hyde was a former member of a team working on top-secret dinosaur resurrection experimentation, but said field of study closed down, and now they are suspicious that he may have continued the work on his own, because dino DNA is very easy to come by, you see.
Have you privately reactivated the project?
Of course not, Major. Colonel Vandemar.
Oh, okay then. Sorry to bother you. What a nice conversation. Unfortunately, the police are not quite as easy for him to shake off, and after making some small talk, he gives them the $5 tour showcasing his extremely expensive, gigantic genetic research facility.
You may scoff all you want, Miss Phillips, but when my work is complete, the entire story of DNA research will have to be rewritten from scratch.
Really?
Wouldn't that mean that absolutely everything we've worked on thus far is completely wrong? I mean, what research are you building on top of to get this? Or is this completely original research, and this is how far along you've gotten with it? Well, shit, if that's the case, you've already done more than enough to get the Nobel Peace Prize. Well, except the killing people thing. Barbara blurts out that she read up on the internet that Dr. Hyde here was working on a project that cloned dinosaurs from fossil DNA, and it lost its funding, but now he's back to his old ways after getting tons of money to make money off it. That's enough to give us a short standoff before the two good guys are easily captured and tossed in a little cell. Ah well, not like they'll be useful at all for a while, so let's move on to the military, who now have reason to believe that Dr. Hyde has continued his research.
There have been calls to Pakistan, but of course we don't know for sure what that means.
Son of a bitch is getting foreign funding.
Well, I guess you could follow the money. Or the big fucking pile of dead bodies that leads straight to the escaped dinosaur that's been killing everybody. This is all the military needs to call in several squads armed to the teeth to rush in and take Hyde down. You know what this means. Even more stock footage, as the helicopters fly in and the team spread out among several different locations, but fuck consistency, we have a climax to worry about. And it's incredibly boring. Like, amazingly boring. The fact that this is all shit we've seen before with very few exceptions make this less a movie you watch to see what happens next, and more one you try to pay enough attention to so you might pick out the original scenes from the recycled ones.
TJ, I want the entire power grid shut down now.
Which is also hard to get excited for, as they are distinctly the most boring ones out of the bunch. Karen decides all of a sudden that despite people obviously dying leading up to this, now these deaths are just too much. Especially murdering Lyle, which honestly was completely pointless. So she runs off to the elevator just in time for more stock footage from Carnosaur 2 to pop up and rip her guts out. Josh McCoy, on the other hand, runs out to flag down the good guy's helicopter while brandishing a gun. Because that'll work. Except this happens.
Oh, shit.
God, even the explosions are boring me to death. There's still Dr. Hyde who, despite not living here and likely having a car, suddenly can't just leave and drive away, so he grabs one of the handy guys in a hazmat suit to pull a hitman and take a most clever disguise. The problem is it is the same suit worn in another piece of stock footage.
That son of a bitch. Fire him up!
That wasn't even a particularly good shot. Who the fuck was there like, no, we must use this again. That's how you take the bad guy out, a fucking puppet eating a Ken doll? Fuck it, it's time for the final showdown, and wouldn't you know it, there's a handy-dandy forklift nearby for Tanner to hop in, which explains why the hell the sheriff has been wearing blue jeans all movie, as he suddenly morphs into the kid from Carnosaur 2, going back and forth between that and Carnosaur 1 with taking the T-Rex out. So, that's it. Happy ending? I don't know, I'm just glad the fucking running time finished. How the hell do you make the climax the most boring part of your movie? Well, I guess reusing every scene from the previous movies and having fucking nothing new to look at will do it. But anyway, that was Raptor. Or Carnosaur Puree. Many have said that it's hard to call this even its own movie, and it's pretty easy to see why. The original story that is there isn't really there to tell an interesting tale in and of itself. It appears to exist simply to string together scenes from the last 3 movies and try to make something else out of them. On one hand, you can commend them for shoehorning in so many things in so many ways. On the other, the whole movie was just them shoehorning in things together in so many ways. The biggest problem this causes is that the whole film is incredibly boring. This is a very harsh thing to say, but I watch movies for a living, and even looking at this as my job, I still had a very hard time paying attention because it was just the same stuff I had already seen. One of the reasons I pick out low-budget things to review is I honestly enjoy the experience of seeing something I haven't before, even if I do end up giving it a 2. But this wasn't able to give that to me because so much of the running time was stock footage, and that which was not was also boring. It's not like the stock footage was used to augment something worth watching on its own. The base film, with without the previous movies in it, is just people walking around sets and giving so little emotion to their performances. I have a feeling they just took the first take where people didn't flub their lines. A few performances were better than others, but still, just no. At the end of the day, Raptor is what you would call an insomnia cure. It's packaged like a high-octane action flick with death and terror, and tries to set that up, but because all the high-intensity scenes are recycled, they don't really excite, and the downtime from that is really dull, making the whole thing an ordeal to get through. Coming in at 1, damn Raptor, we were this close, out of 5. Maybe it would be more interesting if you hadn't seen the Carnosaur trilogy, but then again, if you're interested in this kind of movie, then why wouldn't you have... Anyway, thank you all for watching. I've been Dr. Shado. And remember, teeth are white. Or, they're supposed to be.
It wasn't a cougar.